Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how I'm going to go through retouching my still shots of my bug render. I had a lot of positive feedback from my greenhouse video where people really wanted to learn more about the Photoshop side of things and how they can utilize Photoshop to retouch their MultiPasses afterwards, so that's what I'm going to show you today. My inspiration for making this bug was actually thanks to Russell Dunjune's drawing here on ArtStation. I absolutely love it. I think it's beautiful and I think it deserves to come to life in like a 3D realm, so that's why I did it. So what I did was I started off sculpting him in ZBrush, and this was kind of like my first project in ZBrush because I haven't really used ZBrush before, but once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. I have a whole bunch of different sub-tools for each of his extremities here. The body as well as the antennas are all one. And then when I brought it into Cinema, I ended up rigging him. So what I did is I can do some fun things with my little bug controllers here. What's cool about this is I can move things around that I need to move around. What I have for the rig right now is the front leg and the toe being separate. So I was able to like move the leg around, and then I had the toe separate for his walk cycle. And then what I've got going on here is that I painted a vertex map on his leg, on all of his legs, and as well as his back to like specify where I wanted the hairs. So here is my vertex map of where I wanted to have these little hairs coming off the back of him. And texturing, what I did was I brought him into Substance Painter. I don't have that file on hand right now, but there is where I did most of just the basic coloring of him, and I made a material in Octane. So I had his mouth as one selection tag, and then I placed a material specifically on that because that's different from the rest of his body. Also had the antennas be different, top part of him. All of these are different selections that I put like materials onto. So let's look at the top part. That gets a little trickier. So I added a color correction to the painting that I did in Substance Painter. It looks like I upped the saturation a little bit. The normals are actually coming from, I just found a texture called Large Stains, and I added that as the normals to give a little bit of texture to it because he doesn't need any kind of specific painted texture. He's just a bug, so I just used, I guess, what I could find. And then to also mix in with it, there's another texture pack for the roughness, as well as I think I'm using, it's really the same texture, and plugging that into the transmission. So it's kind of like a little bit of glossy material mixed with a specular material. And then that's where I mixed it in here. And it looks like I used a sine wave in order to specify where I wanted like the translucency to come through more and where I wanted the more diffuse pass to come through. But yeah, I honestly don't remember what I was doing in this because this was a few months ago. But basically I painted something like a base color in Substance Painter, and then I used a lot of different roughness passes in order to make materials that were utilizing transmission and some glossy and mixing those together. That is the rundown of it. Then what I did after I posed him and after I set my vertex weight on the legs and I added some little hairs, which the hairs, by the way, it's literally just like I started off with a cylinder and I added a taper to it, and at the end I was able to get this kind of strand, and then I just added a bend to it. And then once I did that, I put it in an Octane scatter and added a few different like effectors to it. This one just had a plain effector. The one on the back of his body, the hairs have a little bit more randomness to it. Oh, and then these rocks, like this whole landscape, is totally brought to you by Quixel. Quixel Mega Scans had these amazing Icelandic rocks as well as like these shrubs over here, right over here. So I used that just because I needed a quick landscape to throw him into. I really just wanted to show off my sculpt and my bug, but you know, you can't do that properly without putting him into some kind of an environment. And then I just threw an HDRI in the background. So yeah, once I did that, I made a whole bunch of different takes here where I came up with like different angles that I wanted to render after the fact, and I believe I was rendering these at like 8,000 samples. So what I'm going to show you today is how I'm going to retouch some of these files that I rendered. So let's do that. Let's do that now. So these are the 6 that I've rendered. I have 2 more that I want to render. I just wanted to show different angles just so that you can really, you know, get a good idea of the bug all around. So I think I'll start with this one. So I'm going to go to Window and Arrange. And this is how I was able to see all of my images at once. I just opened them up and I did 6 up. But right now I'm going to consolidate all to Tab. And now I've got 1 tab. So if you want to move around, you click the space bar. That's basically panning. Space bar is panning in Photoshop. So we're going to start with nothing. And I want to move my denoise beauty to the bottom, because this is probably going to be the base of my image. And everything else on top of that is going to just be additive, like in a different mode. So post-processing, that was supposed to give me a little more bloom, the post-processing pass, but apparently that didn't. We're going to first see what that does. I'm going to bring that into screen mode and just see what it does. So I'm not sure if I'm going to need this, so I'll just turn that off for now. So ambient occlusion, that's where you're going to throw this pass into a multiply, and it's going to look really dark, right? So we probably don't need it to be as strong as it's, you know, acting right now. So you have like 2 options. You can either choose to put a mask, which is this button down here. You can put a mask and then make sure you're painting in either black or white. The mask will automatically be white when you click that button, so that means everything on this layer is still showing. If you don't want it to show, then you want to paint in black. So if I just, oh, and I also have my brush. You see how the hardness is like hold on. You see that that's like really hard. So we don't want that. So we're going to right click and turn the hardness down to 0. And now everything will be a very soft, gradual move. So yeah, if I start painting, then I can get rid of where I don't want the ambient occlusion to be, right? But I don't quite want to do that just yet, because maybe all I need to do is just brighten it up. So, because there's still some stuff happening under here that maybe I could like bring out more of these waves that's happening under him, or like, you know, some of the shadows that are happening in between his like ridges in the back. So if it's too strong and you have it in multiply mode, what I like to do is I add a curve and I do Control-Alt-G, and that connects that curve only to this layer. And then with that, I'm going to just brighten the pass up, or brighten the layer up. So then when I turn it on and off, it's still working for me, like it's still doing something to the bug, but not as much as it was before. For me, I think I want to show this as like a more translucent and glowy part of his belly. So I'm going to put a mask on top of that, and I'm just going to start painting away because I want that to be glowy. Click on Alt and then click your mask, and you can see what you're actually painting. Okay, then I have the light pass. Now this really excites me because I like what's happening here very much. So let's see what it looks like when we start adding it to screen mode. So what's cool about this is this, when I had this just like this, it's like it's a nighttime shot. So if I wanted to, I probably could start like darkening the beauty right here. I mean, there's going to be a little more you'd have to do to it than a 2-second fix. But if I started to darken the beauty, all of a sudden it's starting to look more like nighttime. And if I wanted to increase the lightness of this pass, I could just duplicate it And I mean, yeah, you need to work with it a little more than that, but you see that you're already starting to change this from like nighttime to daytime, or, you know, midday or something. So with these passes, you can kind of more control your light after the fact, so you don't have to like re-render for nighttime sometimes. But anyways, so yeah, so I like what's happening in the light pass. I might increase it, so I just duplicated it. I'll call it light pass 2, and then paint out what I don't think I need. So I don't think I need it touching the top part of him, but I do really like what's happening around him. And I probably will darken everything at some point, just not right this second. Because I want the glow to be more apparent, and if everything is bright, it won't be. Okay, so we have this sunlight pass, and that's coming from the fact that I've had a daylight tag in Cinema. So if I put that in screen mode, it gives these really pretty, like, kind of like that golden hour, you know, in the background, you're starting to see the gold. Again, this is too bright, but that's okay. Everything will start to normalize in the end. So I'm going to just paint away what parts of it I don't think I need. And I think it helps that I have a Wacom tablet to paint with. It's much harder to paint when you just have a mouse. So if you want to change the opacity, you could either go up here to change the opacity of your brush or to change the flow. But I also just click 4 and 5, 6, whatever. I click these numbers on the keyboard, and that also helped change my opacity on the fly. Yeah. So I'm just gonna paint away. And I mean, what's great about this is not destructive. We're not doing anything destructive because we're working with masks. So we can decide after the fact, like, you know, we didn't take enough away, or we need to put some stuff back. Okay. So then for the ambient light, this also was a unique pass for me because I like to have all the different light passes. But this is something where if you don't want the golden hour, well, now you have the ambient. And also, feel free to move these passes around. Like, nobody says you have to have them in any specific order. They can literally live anywhere you want them to. Alright, so I think most of what I'm going to do with this image is going to need to be done with adjustment layers on top. So we'll get to that. So then the shadow pass, this is different than the ambient occlusion pass because ambient occlusion has no light applied, I don't believe, whatsoever. It's just where the shadows would probably form in the cracks and in the crevices. But shadows are actually showing you like the direction of the light. So let's see what happens if we stick this in multiply. So again, it's too dark, but we can just add a curve and do Control Alt G, and that will allow us to connect the curve just to the shadow pass. And then with the shadow, with it bringing the curve up, so it's brightening the shadow pass, we're able to still utilize it and just not have it be so strong. But again, I'm not sure with like a translucent image if I really want too much shadow happening here, because I want it to be like really glowy. Okay, lastly, I have refraction. So I can't tell you scientifically what the refraction pass does, but I do like the way it looks. So I'm gonna also put that in screen mode. Yeah, so that's really making it glowy. So we probably don't need it so glowy around the eyes. I'm just going to paint away where I think it's not necessary. Cool. Now let's look at some of the other passes again. Let's question, do we want these? I'm going to still tone back. We didn't talk about the material ID pass. This is great because you can see all of your different materials like laid out in a solid color. And why that is good is because you can now select that color. I'm sorry, if I click Alt, that's how I'm just selecting the material ID. So Alt eyeball and then Alt eyeball again allows you to turn this on and off. So what I do, first of all, I'm going to deselect. So I'm going to do Control D, that'll deselect everything. I'm going to unlock that bottom layer. I'm going to click the bottom layer, click Shift, select and click Control G to group it. And I'm going to call this my MultiPass. So this is literally my render. Everything's living in here. So now anything above that, I'm going to click this icon, the folder icon down here, and make a new group, and I'll call this Adjustments, or ADJ for Adjustments. I like to right click and have this be orange. I don't know why, I just do. And I like to right click for the adjustments and have that be red. Okay, so going back to the Material ID pass, I am using the magic wand right here, which is the W, and I'm selecting this red, or whatever I want to select right now. We'll target this red. On the adjustment layer, I can make a folder, a group, and I'm going to call it Top Body, and I can make a mask. Now that mask, I'm sticking it inside the adjustments. That's my mask. So any adjustments I do here, if I go crazy on, the exposure or whatever, it's all only being applied, as long as it's within this folder, it's only being applied to this part of the mask that is white. So let's see what we can do. So this is just a curve, and curves are really powerful because you not only have control of the tone, but we can click the RGB and go to the red and just start seeing, like, where we can really take color in a totally different way using curves. So if you decide, like, oh man, I made it too red, well, here we go. We can literally make a green bug, like a blue and green bug. I think that's pretty awesome. But he's supposed to be red, so I'm gonna kind of work with that. Down here on the bottom left, that's the shadow detail, and I don't want it to be too red. So I'm gonna probably pull it a little more in the blue. And then in here is like the midtones. So I'm maybe going to pull that up to red. And then up here is the highlights. So I'm not sure where I want those to live yet. Alright, let's go to the green. Let's just see what we've got. So this pulls it really yellow, or really it's adding green. And I have no method. I just usually click somewhere in the middle and towards the end and on either ends, and I see what looks best. No, that actually helped a lot. Alright, so I'm going to select the back part of him. Beautiful. And we're going to make a new group and call it Back Body. And I'm going to make a mask while that's still selected. So if I click Alt, click on the mask, I now have that minus all the hairs, which is perfect. So let's do another curve. See what we got. So remember, I want him to be really glowy. So I'm going to give him some contrast. Any S curve gives contrast. If you want to decontrast, then you do the opposite of an S. Do we want to separate? See, if I do this, I'm starting to separate these two parts of his body. I don't know if I want to do that too much, but I don't know. Yeah, and a lot of this, like, you could do, like, these hue changes. You could have also done this in, with the color correction in Octane, in your texture. But, sometimes I also like seeing what we could do after the fact. It's like just way faster doing this in Photoshop after the fact, just to do subtle hue adjustments. You don't have to wait for a re-render. You don't have to make sure that you had really powerful graphics cards. Like, it's just Photoshop. So yeah, alright, cool. Let's see what that did. Oh yeah, that helps it to pop more for sure. Alright, so we are going to go through and do all the legs as well and the antenna. So we'll do that. So I just want to show you guys something. You see that I selected this, but we're also picking up other parts of the purple and other parts of the area. I'm going to Control D to deselect. And what we do is this tolerance, we need to bring that lower. So let's try 20. And now we're only getting it here. So if you still want to fix that up a little more, try 15. And we're still getting it. And if you find that is the case, you could either keep going lower, or I'm just going to click Alt and, oh, what did I click? L. I clicked L for lasso and Alt, and I just did a little lasso to unselect that. Alright, so now I'm going to do another folder. Call this antenna. I don't know if antenna has two ends or not. Okay, so this is my mask. Now, we have a problem because this is really sharp. And that is not sharp at all in this image. So you're going to see things like this, and that's not going to look right. Actually, you're technically seeing that from here. So that doesn't look right. So if we want to fix this mask up, we can go to this under here, or under the gradient option is the blur tool, and we can click the blur tool and just start, make sure we're on the mask, and just start blurring away. And all of a sudden, you won't have that problem anymore. Because this part of his antenna is blurry, so we just need to make sure that we're like matching that on our masks. So same with this antenna. If you have to do it overall, a faster way to do that is if you double click on the mask, you can see the feather option, and you can just like apply it globally, and what that does is makes the entire mask like either super blurry, or you can bring that down. But if you have parts of the mask that need to be sharp, then this is not going to work. Then you need to manually blur. I think in this case we can kind of blur it a little bit and then maybe do some manual. I'm not sure. Let's see what happens. Yeah, no, I think we're okay. Okay, so let's make a mask for our blues. Now this is going to be a fun one. The blues have a whole bunch of these bushes that are kind of going into it, and so if I just click this, we're going to get like a nasty edge around here, and that's not what we want. So let's think of another way. One other way is to go up to select and go to color range, and if I click this, we can kind of choose, if you see my slider, we can kind of choose like how much more color to grab of like colors that are close to it. Let's say that we go here. We're still gonna have an issue though, where if I make, let's say, ground. If I make this, I'm just gonna show you what this is gonna do. So we're still gonna have this issue that is present where the mask isn't perfect. And I think the best way to kind of deal with that, again, is in certain areas, like I don't want to blur the entire mask because we have his little leggies here, and I don't want those to be blurred, but I do want to get rid of the noise that's happening here. So that's where I'll, again, take my blur. Where's my blur? Yeah, here. I'll take my blur tool, and I'll just start blurring this area until I kind of can't see too much of a problem anymore. I'm going to increase the strength of that. And also you have to know that sometimes you just aren't going to be able to push the image as far as you want to when you have, like especially when you have blurry masks or things that are blurred in front. It makes it harder to select a mask from that. But yeah, this should already have improved from what it was. And if you want to see your history, you can either go to Windows and History, and you can see like what you just did. So this is before we touch the blur tool, and this is after, and it's already better. And then we need to touch it here as well, because we don't want to see such sharpness happening with these shrubs. So if I want to check it, Alt-click, and I can see what I did. So yeah, I think that might work. All right, but I actually don't want to brighten the ground. Oops, I want to darken the ground. Yeah, that helps bring my bug to pop out a little more. And I want him to be, or I want the background, the bottom right now, to be a little bluer. Maybe on the purpler side. So right now I'm adding blue by minusing red. And by minusing green, I start to introduce some purple. I like the purple look right now for him just because I felt like sci-fi on the moon or something. Yeah. If you think there's too much blue, then obviously go to the blue pass and reduce that, because I don't want him to look cartoony, although that is pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to tone that down a little bit. Definitely like the darkness around here. It kind of gives a vignette to give some darkness on the bottom. You see that? That's kind of sharp. So we could either brush the mask, like blur the mask back here, which we might have to do a bit, or honestly, I don't think it's, I can just kind of brush away some of the curves so that you won't notice that. Okay, so now we need this guy. So again, I was going to select it with the magic wand, which is W, but I think the better way to do it is probably color range. And it's grabbing right now all of his legs, and we don't need that, so we'll take the L for lasso, and Alt will like erase. So I'm just going to grab the legs and erase those. So this is what our mask looks like. It grabs some of this that we don't need, so I'm going to use my lasso tool, and as long as I have black on the back right here, this is the foreground and background, I can do Control Backspace, and that will fill everything with the background color. I'm going to click B, and I also can just paint away using black this brush area. A true way to test if that mask is good is just like really push it, and you'll start to see where the mask, it has some issues. If you don't need to push it that much though, you probably don't need to worry about it, but I think we need to blur the background where those mountains are. I'm going to just make sure I'm on the mask. I click my blur tool, and I'm just going to blur. Alright, so I'm just going to do what I got to do to these mountains, darken it a little bit. And I just want to show you so far what we've done. If you click on Denoise Beauty, this is where you started. So we're already making this bug really pop, and that's great. That's what we wanted. If you want, you could also make a selection for the shrubs. I'm not sure it's necessary, but that's just an option. Okay, so these are all of my selections, as well as, I guess let me do the leg. That leg is kind of bugging me back here. So then we can start doing some global adjustments. Yeah, curves can do a lot. By the way, you don't have to just do curves. Like, you could choose anything. There's a lot of different things you can, if you need to mess with the saturation and the hue, you can do that. You can add a color LUT to it. You can change it with levels or color balance. Under here, there's a lot. I mean, it's not as extensive as After Effects. I think After Effects, well, definitely has a lot more adjustments, but it's still pretty good. Alright, yeah, I just darkened that a little bit, and I think it needed it. Okay, so I'm going to give some global adjustments. Now, what I actually want to do, I know I need to add a sky in, and I will, but what I want to do is target everything but the bug. So the way I'm going to do that is click on Alt and Material ID. I have my wand, and I'm going to click, hold Shift, click, hold Shift, click, click. So I'm just going to click. Now I'm starting to have some other, it's grabbing other things, and we can get to that. But I'm just going to click like as much of the bug as I kind of can. I'm going to also use L because right here it's not grabbing the in-between of this, so I'm just going to manually grab some of these. So if I hold Shift and L, then I can kind of lasso where it's kind of failing me here. This is why I really like to use the Wacom tablet so much, because I think it's just really easier to draw with. So because of this blur, it's still giving me a mask issue, and we will get to that. Just grab large sections of his body. But yeah, if you see any areas like this, it's not grabbing that, and that's going to look pretty bad. So just try to grab any of these. And then I think we're going to have to like blur this area again like we did before. But if you want to grab what you can, that would be great. Yeah, see again here, it's not grabbing the in-betweens because it's slightly blurry, so it's kind of turning into a different color. Okay, then I also want to click Alt to get rid of what I don't need. Oopsies. Yeah. This part will be a little trickier. We can get back to that. Okay, so I'm gonna make my mask and call this background. Now, when I select the mask, I'm gonna just use brush B for brush and just paint away like some of these problem areas. And if you need a hardness that's greater than 0, you can right click and you can get back to your hardness. You want to blur parts of your mask that are blurred in your actual image. So if like somebody's leg is sharp and in focus, then don't blur it. But if they're, you know, like in this case, this guy's antenna is blurry, then you do want to blur it. If you click backslash, that will allow you to actually see your mask like in red, so you can see over top of your image what you're painting and what you maybe don't need to be painting. Like I see that this is definitely going to need to be blurry. Okay, so I can grab my blur brush or tool and just kind of blur it until you don't see too many flaws with my mask. So that is my, okay, so now that's my background, and I'm going to go to color balance and just see, oh, I'm sorry, that's, I need to invert this. There we go, and get rid of that little, there we go. So now that's my background. So making everything a little bluer, I like that. Yeah, this really like allows the bug to pop by having this background selected and the bug separate. I also want to give a little more like hue or glow to the bottom there. So I'm going to, I made a new layer down here, and I'm going to put it in maybe soft light mode. And clicking my brush, I'm going to select a part of the bug and start, oops, so that's too strong. Bring my hardness down, bring my opacity down, and just start subtly painting in some more glow. Just to exaggerate it a little more, and I could always erase what I've got if it's too strong. I'm just grabbing, I click Alt, and that gives me the eyedropper, and I just grab like different parts of the image, different colors in the image so that I can paint it. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I'll just call this glow. So now I'm going to click on the mask, make a new group, call this buggy, and then I'll make the mask, and then I'll do Control-I, that will invert the mask. So now I just have the bug. Let's add a little color balance to that. So if I want him to pop a little more, I might make him a little more red. Here, hold on, this is with it off. This is with our new adjustment on. So what I like about that is it uses complementary colors to help this bug to pop. And yeah, so now we need to add some kind of a background. So first we need to grab the background. So I will click again to my material ID, and I'm going to go to select color range and click the black. And this time I'll probably bring the slider all the way up. It's going to grab some other areas, no problemo, because even though you can't see it, it technically did grab some of those areas. They're just really fine, so I'm just going to be totally sure and erase anything using my lasso that it might have grabbed. So let's sky. Whoopsies, that's not how you spell sky. And grab that. So again, the mask probably needs to be blurred. To grab an image, you just literally drag and drop. So I did grab this image off the internet. Yeah, I tried to look for something high res, but this is not very high res. No problem though, we're just gonna blur it. We're gonna Gaussian blur that thing. And also, like, we have to blur it because the mountains are blurred, so it would make no sense for the sky to be sharp and the mountains to be blurred. So I just want to blur it a little more than the mountains. If you have this as a smart object, which is what will happen when you drag and drop into your file, it will make a smart object, and then you can always update the Gaussian blur. If you don't have it as a smart object, then you just won't be able to like update the blur, like go back. You can always blur more, but you can't go back. Alright, so now we have to see how do we make things like this and this look good. So this one needs to be blurred, and I'm on the sky mask. I'm just going to blur it some more. So if I click on Material ID, and let's say I go to my color range, and I click the green, I just want the green. It doesn't have to be, yeah, let's try 100. And then I do Shift Control I to inverse selection, and click Control H to hide my selection, and then I paint in white. I'm kind of able to paint those like black edges away so that it's not so like giving an outline. And then I'm going to blur it because this needs to be blurred. Yeah, like this totally needs to be blurred. So let's say we're like okay with that. And then I blur. These little fine hairs are always, or you know, in this case little shrubs, they're very difficult for masking. So just take your time with it. Be aware that, you know, it might take a couple of tries, and ultimately if it's not working out like perfectly, like I wouldn't recommend putting like a hot pink background here because you might see problems. Like here, let's see if we could do that. Yeah, like you're still seeing some black edges, so you could spend more time on that. In my case, for this, I'm just going to kind of darken it a little bit, and the way to do that is putting a mask on for my situation, because if I turn this off, it's black. So I'm just going to put a mask on and then just kind of paint away some of the sky so that it gets darker. So what's great about this is we have this sky mask, and now we can really do anything we want within, and it's not going to be like destructive. So now within here, I'm going to desaturate this just a little bit because I don't need so much attention happening to the background. That's just like an extra little addition, and I might actually reduce the opacity of this altogether, just because I really don't want you focusing on the background. I want you focusing on the bug. So I'm going to just reduce that a little bit, maybe at 75% opacity. And then that's with my adjustments. Okay, I'm going to give the sky a blue color. I'm going to give the bug a yellow. I'm going to give my background a violet, just so I can keep track of what I did. Okay, so here's our adjustments. You can see we did a lot. Like, it almost looks more illustrative now. I'm still going to do some more stuff to it. So another thing I like to do, and I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but I'll click a new layer that's just blank. I can keep that as red. I'll put that in soft light mode, and then using just pure black and white, I'll like go in and basically dodge and burn where I don't need these highlights to be so prominent. I'm actually going to stick that under the sky. Yeah. So I'm just going to almost like paint away some of the areas that I think are distracting, like painting with black to see, to kind of, you know, get your eye to move where I want it to. And then brighten this area up because he is emissive. I'm going to give a little more vignette. So that's what I just did. So you can kind of like actually change where you want the viewer's eyes to go just based on painting lightness and darkness, like, which is what I'm doing with this soft light pass right here. I'm literally just dodging and burning and deciding what parts of the area get or what parts of the image gets brighter, what parts get a little darker. You can do a lot to an image with just some dodging and burning. Another thing we can do, I'll call that SL for soft light, is we could do another soft light, but this one could be more for color. So if I want to add some blues, you can kind of like start adding color really subtly where you want it. If you don't want it to be so prominent, you could either reduce the opacity or reduce your saturation on the color. It's just showing you that's just adding blue. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to keep that, but that's what you can do. You can start adding some color. If you really quickly just want to, I don't know, give the bushes a little more glow, you can just start adding some orangey tones. And you don't even have to do a mask with this, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you're all of a sudden starting to add some more life back into these bushes just by slightly painting a different color over top of it. And it's not perfect, but you can kind of get away with some stuff like this. Just adding some like more orange to the bug and as well as to the bushes area. I'll kind of go with that. Okay, so now I'm going to do overall adjustments. I like to mess with LUTs. So I do have a lot of them, and if you don't have any, just go search the internet for LUTs, and you'll find a bunch. So color lookup, or you could purchase a bunch of LUTs. What I like to do sometimes is just kind of go through here and see if any of these things are doing anything for my image. Like, that's kind of cool. And then I usually use them really, really subtly. Interesting. So let's say that we reduce that to like 20 or 30%. Yeah, I kind of like the colors it's introducing. Just curious what would, yeah, if I just put this in color mode, it does change the colors. So that is, I think I might use that, but I also want to duplicate that, and I liked what it was doing in the normal mode. I just like how it's pushing the purples a little more blue. Yeah, alright, I kind of like that. Yeah, I like that. Alright, so let's add another color lookup and just see what else we got. Ooh, look at that. So what if we reduce this? Oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe it's pushing it a little much, so what if we keep it at like a 10? That does a little something. 12? Cool. Yeah, it's like kind of popping his belly out, and I like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overdo the image or anything, but we might kind of be there. Like, it's kind of looking, I like it. I can keep fidgeting with this for sure. There's so much you can do to images, but I don't want to overdo it. So let's just look back at some of the stuff we did. And then lastly we have, this is what it was, guys. So we just really transformed this, wouldn't you say? And there's like more we can do. Like, we didn't even touch on the post-processing. I don't know if anything is here. Let's put a curve, do a Control-Alt-G, and we're just going to brighten this up and also give it a little bit of contrast, because I don't want to brighten everything. This pass didn't work out as well as I wanted it to. Let's say you want to add some glow and you're like, ah, man, you know, this render didn't work out the way I anticipated. Just add a layer and then make it in, you know, white or whatever color you need the glow to be. And we're just going to really subtly, like, don't worry, it looks bad right now. We're just really subtly just adding some glowy bits. Really, really subtly. I'm just going to start adding it places. Okay, and then if I was to put it in soft light, now we're starting to get some glow. And it's not looking horrible. And if you need to reduce any of that, just click E on your keyboard and you could just kind of erase parts that you don't need the glow to be on. So that's just giving a real subtle glow. Yeah, I really like this bug. He makes me happy. I grew up on a farm and I was kind of obsessed with bugs. So I think it makes sense why I was attracted to building this. I think we did a great job making him come to life in this. So I'm going to save it. And then what I'll do is take my adjustment layer and I will duplicate group and stick it in, let's see, camera 3. What's camera 3? Is that this one? Yeah. So all my adjustments are going to look really bad because, you know, all the masks are not set up yet. You know, we have the wrong sky mask, we have the wrong everything mask. So what I do is I'm just going to close all these and I'll kind of start from scratch a little bit. I mean, all we really need to do is update the masks. We have the denoise beauty. I'm going to go through this a little faster now. So I didn't really use the ambient occlusion much, so I'm not going to worry about that. I have my light pass, put that in screen mode. I'm going to duplicate it a little bit. And I have my sunlight. I don't know if I'm going to use the sunlight. It's a little harsh. Yeah, I'm just going to paint away the parts of the sun I don't need. So we got a lot of shadows happening on his face that I'm not in love with. Hopefully some of our adjustments will fix that. So top body, we're just going to update the mask. Okay, now we have the back body. We're just going to update that mask. Alrighty, look what we did. Nice. So then we have the antenna, right? Yeah. And then is this antenna sharp? Alright, so we have a little bit of blur on the antenna, so we will go ahead and blur that a little bit on the mask. Beautiful. We have the ground. I'm going to use the lasso and control to get rid of any part that I don't want. Now some of these I did some, actual local adjustments on the mask, so you'll want to revisit it and, do what you have to do for this particular image. But that shouldn't take that long to update. Then we have the mountains. Going to delete that layer. Grab some mountains. Yeah, so blur, definitely need a blur. Alright, so then we got the back leg. Oopsies. There we go. Get rid of that. Cool. Now the background, what I can do is grab the top body, add mask to selection. I'm just adding all of these pieces of him, and then we're just going to add a couple more. Oh, I have to. Okay. Let's see what that does. Alright, so that's the bug. Where's the bug? Oh, it did do something. Okay. Cool. And there's actually my glow is still there, but it kind of almost works. Like, it almost kind of works. What do I want that to be? Probably have to update that glow. Yeah, I'll start painting where the glow needs to be for this one. So I'm literally just using the brush and the erase tool to make some more glows happening. Okay, and then what do we got for soft light? Hey, that almost works. Like, it kind of does something nice. And then we have another soft light. This is for the bushes. Very low opacity. Yep, we got a mask problem right here. So let's see what that is from. It's from the ground. Must be the ground. Yep. Alright, so I'm going to grab this as a selection and just blur. Cool. So we have a straggler here. I'm going to make a new layer and just erase it. So I'm going to turn my adjustments off first, and then clicking on the S for the clone stamp tool, I click Alt and I'm going to update. I'm going to clone stamp where I, more rock, so that you're not seeing that problem with the plant going through the rock. So yeah, turning the adjustments back on. And then lastly, we just kind of have the sky. I'm going to modify, expand, let's say 6 pixels. Okay, and then we have LUTs, and we can work with this image a little bit more, but we're basically already getting the same look and feel as what we had on the last image, and that's super great, because that didn't really, yeah, you're going to get faster as you continue working in Photoshop and doing this, but that really didn't take that much time at all. You can kind of really transform an image, and that's what I love about bringing everything into Photoshop. You can just kind of push and pull pixels until you get the image you like. You see that right there? I think I know what that was. I had a target object to help choose where to focus in Cinema when I was rendering, and I think it was popping through. So just going to clone that out. And then if we compare, we've got, here's another one that we're going to get to, but comparing what we did, we have 2 different renders that look basically the same. When you have the material ID pass, you basically have everything you need to make all these selections, instead of doing it by hand. I hope this was useful. I'm not sure if this is the kind of stuff you guys want to learn more of. Let me know if you guys have any questions in Photoshop, if you run into any problems, or if you need to find a way of doing things. I might be able to help you. But this is just my workflow as to how I like to edit my renders and bring some more life to them after the fact in Photoshop. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any requests for future videos, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, happy rendering. I'll catch you again next time.